Hey everybody, today is January the 4th, 2021. It is hard to believe that we are already at a new year and we're getting started with lessons again, and I hope everybody has made some resolutions and thought about how we can be more productive in the classroom, whether it be virtually or in person. So I'm hoping that some of you have thought about that and how we're going to finish the year out, because we are almost halfway through, so it's getting pretty close to halfway. Today we're going to start talking about division. And just like multiplication, we talked about multiplication, putting them in equal groups and doing them on the number line in equal groups. Today we're going to think about division as sharing. Now, most of you all have already used division in the real world. If you have friends that you want to share with and you want everybody to have the same amount, well, guess what? You just did division. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about division as sharing. How can you think of division as sharing? So I've already given you an example of what you probably have already done in the real world, sharing with friends. So let's move right on into our lesson about division today. Our learning objective for today's lesson and tomorrow's is going to be I can use models to solve division problems involving sharing and record solutions using division number sentences. So we're going to actually write division sentences that make sense with the problem that we're being given. You already know that when you want to combine equal groups, you multiply. When we wanted to combine equal groups, we could use multiplication to get an answer quickly, much quicker than repeated addition. Now, repeated addition is one of the strategies we used, but we're finding out as we learn our multiplication facts, it's going to become much faster to multiply rather than to add when we have equal groups. So today we're going to be learning that when you want to share equally, you're going to use division. So you're going to use division to divide that up. I want you to think about some things that you share with friends. So what are some things that you share with friends? Once you come up with that idea, how do you decide how to share equally? How do you share that with your friends equally? So there's some things that I want you to think about as we work through this lesson. I have a problem where I have four friends. Four friends picked 20 apples. They want to share them equally. How many apples should each person get? So we have 20 apples and we got four friends that are going to share them. How could we start even thinking about drawing a picture and thinking about what that should look like in a picture? So I'm going to hop over to my dry erase board and we're going to talk about how that would look if we did that in a picture. I've gone ahead and taken the liberty to draw my picture. I just drew 20 circles. Now, remember that when I'm doing it on a whiteboard like this, I do not worry about my artwork. I don't draw cute little apples just because I want to use my time wisely. And I went ahead and drew these on there. It's not perfect because remember, it's very difficult to draw on the computer, so keep that in mind. Don't stress about that. I could have just as easily drawn 20 lines to help you solve that problem. So I just drew a picture of 20 circles. Now, our problem said that there was 20 apples and there were four friends that were going to share those. Now, if we were at school and you could actually use the manipulatives, the hands-on materials that I have in our classroom, you could have taken those counters and moved them into spots to show four friends. Now, what I like to do, just because I want to be able to pull those things down and put them into groups, you could draw three circles here, three large circles. And I'm going to think about how that would look because I know that four friends are going to get the same amount. So I'm going to draw four large circles. Not very pretty again because I'm not worried about my artwork, even though Miss Bays likes to draw. She doesn't do it well here. So I'm going to start thinking about how I can start sharing these circles or these apples, these circles that represent apples, into my groups for my friends. I want to share them equally. So this is friend 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, how would you, if you had counters, if we considered these as counters, and we were wanting to give each friend, what would you do to give each friend a apple? So think about that. How would you start taking those 20 apples and giving them to your friends? So hopefully some of you have thought about, well, I would give them an apple each time till I gave all my apples out, and that's a good way to do that. I could actually start thinking about putting a circle in each one of these and then marking out 4 of my counters up here. And then I would do the same thing until I use all of the apples. So I'm going to think about how I could take these circles and start breaking these down into groups of dividing it up, putting it into equal shares to group it up for each friend. So let's think about that just a second, and then I want you to come up with your own ideas about what you would do on this particular picture. And again, we all see math differently. So one of the things that my eyes see is I'm saying I could circle 4, 4, 4, and 4 for my 4 friends, so each of them have 4. That would leave me these 4 over here to separate up to give each person an apple. So if I have these 4 as groups, so if I were to take these 4 here and put them down here, then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to go ahead and just mark through those. So you can see I've already given those 4 to my first friend. And this is just one way to look at it. It's not the only way. You could have done them one at a time, but my eyes were seeing that I had 4 groups of 4 already up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and use that knowledge to put mine down here. And again, you may have just said, okay, I'm going to give 1, 2, and just separate them out that way. There's many ways that you can do that. But in my mind, I was seeing 4 groups of 4. So with that being said, I know now that I have 4 apples left. So I have 4 friends. I'm going to start using those apples and give each one of my friends 1 more apple. And now we've used these 4. So how many apples, if I'm dividing 20 apples with 4 friends, how many apples does each friend get? And if you look at the dots down here, you can see that each friend gets 5. So what kind of division sentence could we write? What was the whole number that we started dividing here? You're right, it was 20. So we started dividing 20. So we've got 20, because that's our whole that we're dividing up, divided by, and this is going to be your division sign, and we were dividing that up between 4 friends. And each friend's going to get how many apples? So how many apples does each of these sharing get? So if we're sharing those with 4 friends, they're each going to get 5. So this is what the division sentence would look like. Now I want you to think about some things that you're noticing here. What are some things that you notice about division? And then as we come into small group with Miss Bays, we're going to talk about what we see with division, that it might be something similar to what we've already done in math this year. What does this look like to you? So think about that, because when you get with me in small group, I'm going to be asking you those questions. So let's think about some of the things that we do with our vocabulary. And I'm hoping that you have your journal there, that you wrote some of the vocabulary so far this year down. Today we're going to be talking about division. So our vocabulary word for today is division. And what is division? So division is an operation you can use to find how many groups or how many there are in each group. So we could be looking for how many groups that they were shared between, or we could be looking for how many are in each group. Now, with the apples, we knew how many groups there were going to be because we had 4 friends, right? So we already knew the grouping. What we were looking for was how many are there in each group, or how many apples was each friend going to get. So we may be looking for one or the other. We're always going to think about what the whole is. What are we dividing up? And in that case, we had 20 apples to divide up. So division is an operation where you can use that you can use. Sorry about that, got tongue-tied. You can use to find how many groups or how many there are in each group. So when we're thinking of division, we're thinking about how many are in each group or how many groups there are. All right, so let's look at this particular model. Now, I love this model. It works out perfectly. It lets us see what the whole is. So if we are looking at this particular problem, 18 divided by 3 equals, and I put a question mark. Now, remember, we talked about variables. I could have very easily put A there or B, A, B, C, just any letter that would represent an unknown number. So I could have put a variable there, but I went ahead and just put a question mark so that it matched my parts down here that we're looking for. So what this is telling us is that we have 18. So our whole is 18. It may be 18 candy bars. It may be 18 pieces of candy. It may be 18 apples. It may be 18 tennis balls or baseballs. It could be anything that would be a total of 18, where we would have a total of 18 items. And what it's telling us is it's going to be divided into 3 groups. We're going to share this with 3 groups. We're looking for the part, so each one of these represents a part. And when we put them all together, it should equal this 18 here. So let's think about what these parts could be. So if we have 18, let's just use candy, for example. If we have 18 pieces of candy, and we're going to share those with 3 people, how many pieces of candy is each person going to get? So again, here's one of those things where we could use those counters to help us, or anything that has 18 in there. You could get out 18 pieces of candy. You can use 18 cheese crackers. Anything that you have 18 of, you could place those items out on your table, and you can start breaking those into groups of 3. So how many would be in 3 groups? How many will we be sharing with those 3 groups? Our goal is to find out what each part is. Once we find out what each part is, then that should, when we add them all 3 together, just like repeated addition, we should be able to add them together to get that 18. And whatever one part is, that's what the answer is going to be here. So we're going to try to find out what one part is to help us with this answer. But we're going to need to make sure that we have all 3 parts so that we can guarantee that it equals 18, what our whole is. So how could we do that? How could we start breaking that down? So I'm going to switch over to my whiteboard again. You can already see that I've drawn 18 dots, and I went ahead and just drew 6 big circles so that when I start sharing those 18 with those 3, then I should be able to tell how many are going to be in each group. And again, my eyes are seeing immediately that I have 3s here. So I have 3 groups of 3 here. I'm going to go ahead and take those down. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's going to get rid of all of these. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw lines through them so that I know I've already used those. And again, it would be much easier if you had those counters, and I apologize that you can't use counters, but it is what it is at this point. We just don't have the ability to do that. So I'm going to look again to see if I can see groups of 3 again, and I do. So I see that I'm going to be able to take 3 more for each one and put those in. I'm going to go ahead and mark those off as I do it. Now again, you're not always going to be able to do it this way. You may have to do it one at a time, and I've got 3 here I can use. So I'm going to go ahead and give those here. And then I've got 3 left that I'm going to be able to use here. So when I look at 18 divided by 3, I see that when I'm sharing those, I'm going to be able to give each person 6. So the answer to our problem would be 6. Over here, I know that the question mark now is that my answer is 6, and that each part, I'm going to go ahead and tab on down. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and tab down here so that you can see each part is going to equal 6 also. And that's going to take me just a second to do that, but you're going to see that it also is 6. So when I put those 6 together, again, it should equal a total of 6. So as you can see, each part equals 6. So if I were to put these together, now remember, when I combine them, combining means I'm going to use addition. If I combine these together, 6 plus 6 plus 6, it equals 18. So now I know that each person would get 6. All right, for today, you're going to have 2 things to do for me, and then you're going to be finished, lesson work, and then you're going to do your problem of the day. Everybody have a great day.